Hello, everyone, and welcome to Property4Media Meets. I'm Henry Hemming, Global Advisor to Property4Media. Terrific to have you here for a webinar we've been looking forward to for quite some time. Yep, it's Luxury Property, Meet the Media, and lovely to have a packed audience of property PR professionals for an event that was driven by demand for a dedicated section on this topic. So please be reassured from this moment onwards, this webinar will be sheer and unadulterated luxury. Hope you enjoy it. No refunds though. And here to tell you about the latest in the sector, we currently have three, but we have four of the very top names in luxury property across the UK media spectrum. So let me welcome them. We have two editors. We have Anne Cuthbertson, editor of the London magazine. Hello, Anne. Great to have you here.
Hi, Henry. Hello.
We're going to have, I hope, any moment, fingers crossed, Carol Lewis, the property editor of the Times and Sunday Times. She's told me she will join momentarily. And we've got two of the very top freelance writers in luxury. Delighted to welcome them. They are Hugo Cox. Hello, Hugo.
Hello, Henry. Thank you for having me, and thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thank you for joining us, Hugo. Really appreciate it. And of course, we have Zoe Darehall with us. Hello, Zoe.
Hello.
Lovely to have you here this morning. Okay, so I'm gonna start by inviting each of our experts to offer their take both on trends and seismic changes maybe in the luxury property market. What is feature worthy, what is not, and I'm sure they'll also dot in some intelligence on how to pitch luxury property to them for consideration, either for their pages or pitching to our freelancers for stories that they might take to their commissioning editors. Don't forget to start pitching your own questions here to our panelists. Use the Zoom Q&A button. If you could put the company name at the end of your question, that's great. Also, we love a bit of social, so do go mad on social. We're at Property4Media, and please do name check our panelists when you do so. So on with the show, and kindly offering to go up first, we have Anne Cuthbertson, the editor of London Magazine. Anne has over 20 years experience in property and lifestyle journalism across both top newspapers and magazines. She first stepped into the world of luxury property over 20 years ago when she launched the Sunday Telegraph's first standalone property section, that's House and Home, which would evolve into the Life section. She remembers one memorable article which involved a top interior designer, the esteemed Max Rollett, coming to view her own home and impart some words of wisdom. On entering the living room and surveying the general chaos, Anne's words, he gently pressed the palm of his hand to his forehead in silent agony. After 14 years at the Telegraph, Anne moved closer to the world of luxury property to become editor of London Magazine. It's published by Chelsea Magazine Company, now part of the Telegraph Media Group. It's a 34-year-old monthly title, and it's actually owned by the Central London Estate Agents. It's a group that includes Knight Frank, Dexter's, Savills, Sotheby's Realty, and others, really top names in luxury. And with luxury property at its heart, but also encompassing interiors, schools, art and culture, and interviews with leading Londoners, the magazine goes through the doors of the London's most exclusive homes, together with private members clubs, city offices, five-star hotels, airport lounges, you name it. Anne, we're thrilled that you've joined us. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Henry, and thank you for having me on today's panel. Delighted to talk about this particular subject because I am immersed on it on a weekly basis. I'm going to talk today largely about London, which is no surprises, but also the themes in luxury property that I've been seeing coming out. I'm going to talk a bit about luxury interiors. And I'm going to talk also about what I'm looking for as an editor for my content. So I hope that that's all going to be of help to you all. So I start with just a few words that cross my desk on a daily basis that you'll all be familiar with, but you can see why luxury property in London is bewildering. Super prime, private office, ultra high net worth, top 0.1%, rare, off-market, exclusive, turnkey, high spec, best in class. So it's a world of superlatives. It's all about different ways of conveying luxury, and my job as an editor is to cut through that, to try and pick it apart and find out what really is at the top end, which is my readership, and what is something that I can, you know, safely put to one side. What's the substance over the style? New ones that I heard this week actually were sensitive luxury and personalized luxury. So we're just, you know, it's so, there's so many words involved. So what am I looking for then? Well, our magazine goes into some of the best homes in the world in prime central London and prime outer London. We go to about 50,000 homes. We also go into hotels and private residences. And in my copy, I'm looking for exceptional authority, because if you're dealing in properties that are worth tens of millions, so super prime is anything over 10 million. I was looking at a property the other day that was £40,000 a week to rent in Holland Park. I'm looking at a penthouse that was £11 million that has just sold, overlooking the London Eye. So my copy, my journalism has to be of that caliber. It has to have incredible authority, and it has to look beautiful. It has to be beautifully displayed. So these are the key things, and I'll keep coming back to that in my conversation with you today. So what's the luxury property market in London looking like at the moment? Well, it's been completely, the landscape has completely changed in recent years. I think that we started with One Hyde Park many years ago, it feels now, and now you've got branded residences and this super prime, I'm using that word again, luxury new builds popping up everywhere, and that has changed the landscape of London property. London was quite late to this party, actually. We saw these developments appearing in other parts of the world, whereas, you know, now they're coming thick and fast. There's been a lot of new development in new build, and these are residences that are aligned with hotel groups, with luxury spas, or with supreme concierge services, because that's what this global transient super rich market has been looking for. And it's changed the villages of London in many ways. It's now people are looking for the property and less about the area. So you might see Bayswater and Queensway, where you've got the Whiteley development, that has transformed and is transforming that area. You've got the Edit, which is a development in Bermondsey. You've got Nine Elms. These outer pockets of London are now starting to develop luxury property, and it's changing the landscape. So as an editor, I'm constantly looking at new areas. You had, you know, Mayfair has long been you know, leading the pack with this with super prime, and their pounds per square foot is unmatched now in other areas. It's gone ahead of Knightsbridge, of other areas, and that's largely down to the redevelopment of existing London buildings. What's going to be interesting in this sector, with developments such as the Chelsea Barracks, the old War Office in Whitehall. We've got a big one coming up, One Mayfair, which is going to have an entry-level price of 35 million. I mean, that's going to, who knows what that's going to be like. What's going to be interesting is what's going to be the resale value of some of these developments, because they're launching, they're selling, they do seem to be popular, but what's going to happen when they come back onto the market? Where so again, one to watch, I think. The market, who are the buyers? I'm always interested in this. So prime central London luxury, an agent the other day said it's pretty much 50% overseas buyers in certain areas. Sometimes it can be more if you're looking at the core of prime central London, such as Knightsbridge or Mayfair. So you've always got to have that in mind, who your buyers are. I've noticed in this market recently, there's been a flurry of big sales at the end of last year, and that was after the budget. There was in a sense, there was a sigh of relief that things hadn't perhaps been as bad as we might have thought, but also with the introduction of increased stamp duty on second homes, there's probably been some deals that are going through, because even the super rich don't like paying extra stamp duty more than they have to. So there's been some colossal deals going through. And I think that they may continue to go through up until April. But another area that I've seen changing is that some people have decided to sit things out and rent. And actually Zoe, who writes for me regularly, she has written a piece for me for my next edition about the ultra tenants that are, happy to spend £1 million on renting a London property for a year.
Yeah.
So this is where you get a shift. They're happy to do that. They're not quite sure about buying. The market in the last year, according to Lonres, which gives us all these fantastic statistics on the London market, in the last year it ended just down. I think it was just 1% down on the year before the market. So it's fairly flat. But that flat can also be stable. It's not dramatically diving. So I think that while people are not seeing the kind of price hikes, and we haven't been seeing those since George Osborne introduced stamp duty at the end of 2014, there are not there's not huge turnover of property like there used to be, because you're not going to make a lot of money. So either people are going to wait and see and rent one of these the super prime rentals are really a big area of the market now, or they're looking at, if the right property comes up, they are looking at making their move. And this is where you get off market. So a lot of the best agents that I deal with, so the Knight Franks, the Savills, the Sotheby's, you won't even see what's coming on at this really top end of the luxury market, because it's about privacy and exclusivity. So that makes it tough for us as journalists when you don't actually get to see what's out there. So I would say some of the properties, traditional homes that are coming on the market, so a family home in Holland Park, you may not see it. But the new builds, yes, they are marketing, and we love to see that in print. I'm always keen to see the very best properties that come on the market. And as I said, I use the likes of Zoe and broadsheet newspaper journalists to write my content, because my content has got to have the gravitas that an investment of this kind deserves. If you're going to spend 10 million plus on property, you want it, your story about it to be absolutely on point. So that's a little bit about the market and how it's shaping London. I think that experiences are very much now shaping the way that people buy. In lockdown, when we were deprived of experiences, we started to change our buying habits. And what we're now seeing is more lifestyle elements appearing in property, whether that's wellness facilities and health facilities, whether that's a paddle tennis court as part of your development. That is a huge trend, and I don't think that's going to go away. I think the younger buyers, that's a good area to look at. What are the younger buyers wanting? And health and sport is now starting to encroach on the older traditional wine cellars and fine dining that perhaps we were seeing in the luxury market a lot more. Senior living is an area that okay, it doesn't sound very sexy, but believe you me, that area of the market is white hot in London. So we do a senior living special every August, and we're seeing new developments popping up everywhere. There are libraries curated by Nina Campbell, interiors again by Nina or other high-end interior designers. They will have a chef from the, former chef from the Savoy working in the kitchen. They'll have the spa, they'll have the sports facilities, because the generation that are now looking at moving into senior luxury accommodation in London, they're active, and they've got plenty of money, and they want a beautiful lifestyle. So that's a really hot area that we've found. The village community, I'm also going to talk about. When you're looking at younger buyers, they don't want to live in an ivory tower where they don't see anybody, they don't do anything. I think that's probably why the likes of Bishop's Avenue, where so remote, so far away, that's just not doing so well these days. I think that the younger buyer of luxury property wants to be in the heart, wants to live the London lifestyle. So the great estates such as Cadogan and Grosvenor are busy working with these developers to try and create placemaking. So you've got beautiful bars and restaurants, and you've seen examples of this on like Pavilion Road in Chelsea, and parts of Belgravia, because buyers want that community, but not just to be in their remote apartment somewhere, never seeing anyone. So that's really important. Interiors. So turnkey has been the byword of prime luxury for a while now. Everything perfect down to the bar of soap in the bathroom. But what I've seen recently in all of these, both second hand, I don't want to call them second-hand homes, but not new homes, and new, is that we're seeing a return of character. Again, this is part of this experiences thing. You want to see a home that looks lived in, rather than everything bling. Bling is over. We're not seeing gold taps and brand new. People are looking for a mixture of antiques and contemporary. They're looking for beautiful objects that look like they've well traveled. They're looking for a library that's been curated for them by an expert. A lot of these branded residences will have the likes of Elysian or Sims Hilditch, I've just seen designing for the old War Office, or Angel O'Donnell, because they want that exquisite, tasteful and characterful London interior, as opposed to the bland hotel room style, cookie cutter style that we were seeing a few years ago. And I think this is a trend that will continue. You've got sustainability. The younger buyers and other buyers are now wanting to see more natural materials in their interiors, rather than the throwaway culture that we had up until fairly recently. So that's a trend I think will be ongoing. We've seen a rise of home staging as well. So when you are selling your property or you're renting your property out, somebody brought in to make it look immaculate. Now, if you're selling or renting at this end of the market, it makes perfect sense to do that. I still see in the sales brochures sent to me rental properties that are either empty or they've just got a few sticks of furniture in there. Now, if you're operating at this end of the market, you've got to make it look beautiful. So there are now companies that will come in. Birkbeck Interiors is one that comes to mind, that will come in and they will dress your property for you. And again, I see this as a growing trend. You cannot get away with a shoddy interior at this level of the market. And I would say on this note, so I work in magazines and we're in an Instagram world. The quality of pictures, it's got to be absolutely perfect. Otherwise, it's not going to make our pages, and it's not going to ultimately sell your product better. So I will always want to see the best images, and sometimes when I'm commissioning, I can't make a decision until I've seen the pictures. It's just vital for me. It can be a great story, a great angle, but I must see the pictures. And sometimes, if you've just got great pictures and you're not quite sure what the angle is, just send them to me anyway, and I'll have a look, because a great picture will sell. So that's just a really key message for everybody out there, and for the actual PRs for property companies. Don't neglect that area. Let me just see. A new angle. So I've asked for great pictures, but sometimes I need to know. I'm always looking for a fresh approach to luxury property. So that's why I'm asking to look at the lifestyle element. So I call it parallel to property. So all the areas that are in keeping with high-end luxury property, it could be antiques, it's art, it's increasingly it's health and wellness, it's sustainability. These are really strong angles, and so sometimes take a step back and look at the bigger picture. It could be craftsmanship. I'm seeing a great deal more attention to the finer details, particularly in high-end property, because that's what sets it apart now from fast interiors, in the way that fast fashion, it's that longevity that we're now seeing, that people now want. We're not seeing the kind of the house that's been quickly done up and sold over. That's not happening anymore. People are in it for the long term, and they see the value in that now. When it comes to selling these homes, I know that the agents who I communicate with regularly, they will say that the finish of the property will set it apart. It will really help at getting the deal over the line. But ultimately, the agents themselves, they rely on data in the market. They rely on their experience, and this is why I see time and time again in the luxury property market, it is those agents that I work with, the Knight Franks, the Savills, Sotheby's, Beecham Estate, Weatheralls, that are the ones that are continuing to get over the line and sell, and these top end properties, because they've got that knowledge and that experience. So when you're pitching to me, what does the London magazine want? So I do represent Central London estate agents, so that's hands up. That is the client of the London magazine. So there are 24 household name agents that are involved. They have history, they have experience, they have knowledge, but I decide the content. It is very much an independent magazine in that respect. I commission top-level journalists, and I'm looking for stories across the spectrum of luxury property, as well, luxury property interiors and lifestyle stories. Everything that the London homeowner or tenant would want to read about. And so it's a very broad spectrum. It keeps me interested, I have to say. There's so much going on. So you don't have to be a Central London agent to get mentioned in my magazine. So we like to work in collaboration with a lot of high-end titles. So we had Burlington Arcade was one of our best advertisers last year, and we worked with them on many shopping stories. We do also work with high-end interiors companies. There are a lot of interior designers that are interested in our magazine as well. And then top end brands as well. We've had clinics and hospitals and schools. We do a schools guide twice a year, and schools and property are very, very close bedfellows as well, for the family market, because London homeowners, schools is one of the top reasons that people come to buy luxury property in London, whether that's boarding schools or top prep schools in London. So that's another element that we're also looking at. I think that might be all that I have to say, but I'm sure there'll be other questions that will come up later. So thank you for listening.
Terrific, Anne. Thank you so much. That was a really enthralling editor's perspective, and just great to get that in one of these webinars. We really appreciate it. And there are questions already, so we will be coming back to you. But thanks for your State of the Nation. I loved it.
Okay.
Carol, are you okay going on next? I had you next in our lineup. So good to see you, and
Yes.
and thanks so much for joining us. It's brilliant. We were thrilled when we heard you would join, so that's terrific.
Sorry for the technical problems this morning, but yes, I'm ready to go.
I thought it was like securing a meeting room at News Corp was the issue, but we're
That's one of them, yeah. So I'm sat here now, as you can see behind me, a totally empty block of build to rent, fully furnished flats.
amazing. Well, there's the story.
Amazing, yeah. I'm afraid I'm not going to be quite as upbeat as Anne was.
Sorry to, as soon as you arrive, sorry to drop you in at the deep end, but it is the deep end of my luxury swimming pool behind me at my house in East Sussex, and it is heated. But Carol, lovely to have you here. So Carol needs zero introduction, but here goes. She is the property editor of the Times and Sunday Times, and has worked for the Times for over 10 years on business, finance, and property. And Carol, really over to you on your thoughts on the UK luxury property market, and also how can our audience of comms professionals get interest from your team of journalists at the Times?
Yes, so as I said, I'm not quite as upbeat as Anne on the prospects for prime central London, particularly the super prime. That Lonres list of sales, including what Anne called very big deals at the end of the year, was actually 25% down on transactions, 34% down on value at the top end. To give you a flavour, the top sale last year was Tom Ford's house in the Boltons. It was on at 80, but we think he settled substantially lower than that. Compare that to previous years where the top sale was 138 million the year before, 210 million the year before that, and you can see where it's come off. It's come off quite a bit. Probably it globally has been an uncertain time. There's been a lot of elections, particularly the American election and the election here, of course. Looking forward to 2025, I'm afraid I don't see it getting a hell of a lot better. I think it will probably just flatten out. We've got the unraveling of non-dom status from April. We've got the doubling of council tax on second homes. We've got the extra stamp duty, 3 to 5, it's now 5% on second home buying. And the big thing that's looming down the market is capital gains tax rises. That does look like it will come in if Rachel Reeves gets into a corner, which is looking increasingly likely, and it would go up to income tax rates. So we are seeing people starting to get rid of their rental portfolios, scrutinizing what they buy, but the banks are also scrutinizing what they buy. You're very wealthy, don't just go and get a mortgage on their house. They're borrowing against a portfolio of assets, including shares, businesses, other properties. And if the banks are starting to say, well, look, if you're hit with CGT, that's 40% off the value of your assets, they're really getting scrutinized. So you're coming down to the cash buyers. That narrows the market. For the sort of lower end of prime, you've not only got that, you've got VAT on school fees, which is skewing slightly where some people are looking already. And you've also got the inheritance tax changes on land to consider. In terms of second homes for Brits, we are seeing the markets in North Norfolk, Cornwall and Devon be dampened down by the new rules. You've got the doubling of council tax, and you've got the threat of CGT. It's, the pandemic rush is well and truly over now. So we're going back towards a more normal market, I think, in that respect. Having said that, there's lots of stock on the market. So if it's priced well, it will move. And we are still favourable comparable to other areas. I think we're about halfway up the table in terms of taxes and cost to buy as a foreign buyer. And we could see those holiday markets come back as well as the EU countries start clamping down more on British buyers or non-EU buyers. I mean, this week we've had the Spanish Prime Minister speak out against British buyers and saying he's going to double the tax on non-EU buyers buying in Spain. Whether he could get that through is another matter, but we are seeing Portugal withdraw some of their golden visa, and we've seen Italy double its flat tax. So that will have an impact on the market and could mean areas here do well. In terms of foreign investors here, we are seeing a trend towards Chinese and Indian investors buying, particularly new build. The difference now compared to a few years back is they're actually using them more. They're not just pure investment plays. In terms of Americans coming over, yes, there's a lot of talk of disgruntled Democrats making their way over, but Americans do tend to rent more than they buy. So that could have a positive effect on the high-end rental market. There's lots more to say. I don't want to sort of hog the limelight at all. But in terms of what we do, we don't have a regular luxury slot. We will just do the market news as and when. We will do sales news as and when. We're interested very much in what's on the market, what the trends are, any particularly stunning properties that people have. Interiors as well. We have Katrina Burrows, who's our interiors editor. And if people want to get in touch, I can give them a full rundown of who does what.
Absolutely terrific, Carol. Thank you so much. Great. What a debate, and what an overview. What an interesting year ahead. So let's turn to our two specialist freelancers on luxury property. And first up is Hugo Cox. I've known for many years, but for over 10 years, Hugo has covered international and UK property, mainly for the Financial Times, but also writes for the Times and Telegraph. He also writes about personal finance. Great leads for Hugo, everyone, are rich individuals who are doing fascinating things with their homes, their land, their local community, or just investing their money in crazy ways. So have a think about that. Before specializing in property and personal finance, he was a trade journalist for 12 years, writing about institutional investment in real estate and other sectors. And this is an area he still covers for Asian Investor in Hong Kong and occasionally for the FT. Hugo, lovely to have you here. Over to you for your thoughts on luxury property.
Thanks, Henry, and good morning, everyone. And Henry had reminded me with that introduction how rich a seam property can be for personal finance stories, and whether that be, as Carol mentioned, the other assets that people use as collateral to borrow to do things with their house or buy other homes, or whether it be how they finance or the choices that they make, the financial dimensions of the choices that they make as those are weaved into the rest of their financial personal accounting. So always it gives dividends if you're thinking about your pitches from that dimension, which may not be one that you readily consider, but it's not a long distance from the world that you're thinking about in the luxury property segment and the personal finance dimensions of that. I'm going to talk about what I'm interested in principally. Carol's given some very kind of forthright and concise take on the future of transaction numbers and prices, and two, in the changing buyer habits. So hopefully a few things will trickle out the bottom in terms of what I think is going to happen. But just to give my sixpenneth worth to begin with, the trends abroad are going to be moved by very similar forces to the trends at home, which is above all the direction of mortgage rates. I never give any truck to people who say that very rich buyers buy in cash, because they may exchange in cash, but they're the way they're thinking about whether they're going to buy, where they're going to buy, how they're going to buy, always involves having an eye on how they're going to finance it. These are very, very rich people. They employ teams, not just one, but teams of financial professionals to explain to them how to get the best value out of the money that they have. They are sensitive to mortgage rates and to tax changes, be those sales taxes, how those change across Europe and the US, or annual standing property taxes. Anne and Carol mentioned the likely doubling of the second home tax. So in France, Spain and Portugal, and across Europe, how far those second home markets for Brits will continue to function with generally will continue to function with interest rates high. For Brits, it's more to this big dimension that came in 2022 is how willing domestic banks are to continue lending to them. That dried up almost entirely. And it's not necessarily the same headline story that domestic borrowers are subject to. There are different dynamics there. Obviously, no finance, no purchase for most people buying abroad. When mortgage rates do change, and this won't necessarily be when interest rates change. So much of the future direction of interest rates is priced into mortgage rates. That availability of mortgage rates, as well as just how expensive they are, I'll be looking very closely at that. The willingness for people to buy, especially young buyers, there's always a first-time buyer angle in the luxury segment, and then it'll be all hands on deck. So if you have case studies or people that you know who are well placed at those points, please stick them in your kind of quick dial or put it in a note to me. Then they're there. On that point, generally, I always need people who are kind of peripheral to or even outside the profession. I know for most of you, developers and estate agents, your clients. But both of these groups, particularly estate agents, are tremendously well connected in an area where they work. And so I'm often asking them to tell me, to introduce me to local traders, art gallery owners. So if you can have those conversations with them as well, then you'll make that process easier for me. Following from what Anne was saying, the super prime renting is going to be a big story in the UK following April, and particularly what's replacing the non-dom regime, the 4-year tax exemption for short-term residents. So people will be piling into London, or those renters will be going in a more committed, they'll be staying for a shorter period. They won't be dipping their toe in the way that they did 5 years ago, thinking about that Mayfair home, taking a 1-year rental. They'll be renting for 4 years. I'd like to speak to relocation companies who are starting to move people now with all of the detritus for what will be more significant moves. I'm also particularly interested in the intermediaries who help celebrities, sports people, film people, music people find a home. Obviously, they're very publicity shy, but just one down from the money. Those people who will give interesting insights to where they how they like to live, the sorts of homes they're buying. I'm always very interested in speaking to legal professions about closing very high value sales. Those who arrange very high value mortgages, many of them in Monaco. I'm interested in the trust experts who can tell me about why trusts might be a good way to support gifting between generations now that pensions are liable to inheritance tax. I'm interested in people who own homes through trusts and have done for years, or those who use trusts to buy them. Climate change is obviously a massive theme. So here, the way I think about this is the individual responses to living at risk and the communal responses, and the types of challenges in that second group that flooding, hail, storms, hurricane, fire set neighborhoods, how people choose to respond to that. Do they do things on their own, or do they cooperate to get out of it, particularly in the luxury segment? Cooperation, community, these are things that have long been neglected, despite even though they want to live in a village, they're not there very much, and they have their reasons for staying away often. But what's going to happen to there? What are the companies that will emerge to mediate that process of coming together? Retrofits, conversions, always like those stories, particularly right now, people who adapt their homes rather than knocking them down, starting again, and how they think about the materials that they're using or not using to limit the impact of those projects. I like new materials technology stuff that's going into making buildings less impactful, as well as fire safe or flood safe. This is a bit niche, but interested in novel ideas of what to do with construction rubble. Anyone choosing to live in a smaller home because they consider the footprint to be excessive of building a larger one or running a larger one. I'm interested in how people convert historic buildings, not just in the UK, but abroad. Obviously, a lot of your clients will be selling big homes that are old. People and make their change. But that's not easy, especially if there's a listing or if there's a conservation area. So people who've done it, people are trying to do it, people who gave up because I was so cross with how difficult it was. The architects, the builders who helped them, the engineers, very interested in shortage of skilled contractors, which feels like it's going to be a big holdback to eco retrofits in the UK in the coming years. If we can find evidence of that, people who are who just can't get hold of the trades that they need to do this work, might be relatively mundane in installing an air source heat pump, or maintaining the air source heat pump, or just getting advice about whether they want air or water source. Historic houses, full stop, I'm very interested in. The people who live in them, like Henry said at the beginning, the people who work for the people who live in them, maybe even the people who work for the people who work for the people who live in those who keep the gardens, the ones that run the accommodation, run the sports, the shooting and the fishing. I like equestrian estates. When it comes to British people moving abroad, this year I want to focus a lot on the social dimensions of this. The ones which I talked about, integration and community before, who really see the importance of engaging socially with the place that they're in. Definitely if that involves doing anything commercial, opening a business, bringing their work into where they're living. I haven't talked about the US, which is a big part of what I write about. Let me just go to that bit, then wind up. Really, new government interested in the sort of Florida 2.0, where other kind of Republican popular areas are developing. What are new places on the map in the US that a different type of buyer is looking for, or this kind of set of sort of political preoccupations is affecting the new red states, the new red counties, the people who might benefit from the next round of, or the people who are moving for tax reasons, but they're not just the New Yorkers who are going to Florida. What's the next dimension in that? Very interested in technology, in architecture, so any automated or machine generated building techniques, anything that uses AI in design or construction or function around the home. Love robots in the home, love robots in construction. Definitely interested in people who work around co-housing, which feels to me like it could become an important part of the government's building project here. We've been terrible with it, but the Germans are great, the Swedes are great, the Danish are great, the Dutch are great. So if you've got any clients out there, education, and talked about, always interested in speaking to people who work in private education around the world, who can tell me about their admissions trends and how their school body's composed. Again, estate agents will know these people. That's about it. Final one, people generating their own power. Particularly, again, interested if they're doing it with other people, the companies that are helping them, the ones that are helping them finance costly kit. They want to stick a wind turbine up in one of the fields, install a battery. That's it. Thank you very much. Sorry to go on.
No, thank you for going on. That was mesmerizing. A whole slew of interesting angles for you, our audience, to pitch to Hugo. I hope his email box is full by the end of the day with your case studies. What an amazing set of story angles. Fascinating. It says so much about where the market is going. So we're going to turn to Zoe, and I want Zoe to have her full time. Is the panel okay if we did overrun by 10 minutes today, or does someone need a hard stop at 12?
I need the hard stop, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I'm going to have to go at 12.
100%. It's been, I think it's just been terrific. Apologies in advance if we can't cover off all the questions that we've received, but let's hear from Zoe. Zoe is specialized in property writing for over 20 years and writes regularly for Financial Times, Telegraph, Luxury, The Times, and of course we've heard that she's a star writer for the London Magazine and Sphere. She loves prime. She also loves super prime. I worked out today what super prime is. Thank you for that. And thank you, Zoe, for being here. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, please.
Hello, everyone. The thing about going last is obviously a lot of what I was going to say has been covered. That was a phenomenally exhaustive list from Hugo there. I mean, in short, if I try and explain a bit about what I'm looking for and the various publications I'm working for, the short answer is I write about everywhere, anywhere. Obviously for Anne, for the London Magazine, it's almost entirely London, and for Sphere Magazine as well, it's London, but also I'm always looking for lots of luxury, high-end, non-London, out of London ideas, and that's harder to find. So that might be something for PRs who are based elsewhere, to let me know about sort of interesting projects elsewhere. Not, non-London doesn't have to always be, the Soho farmhouse belt. I'd like to hear about anywhere else in the country, and Wales, and everywhere else. Developers doing different things, people are moving to set up interesting new lives elsewhere, properties or people with great stories. So that would be great. In terms of for the FT, I sort of cover everywhere. The destination is kind of the springboard, and then, as Hugo says, it's really all about those local voices, and whether it's long-term residents or people who've just moved to these places, people who've set up businesses. It's all those voices of experience and authority, and then we can kind of drop estate agents' views in with the market data and some anecdotal stuff. But it really, as Hugo mentioned, it's really all about having those links through the agents to all the local people that kind of make the piece. And it's often those little personal anecdotes that really make the idea as well. It's just something that's mentioned in passing often, or you just spot as a little detail that's a great way into talking about a destination and a property market. I also write for Forbes now. I'm one of their affiliated writers, and again, that's global, so very high end. It's I can only write about Forbes affiliated agents generally. That's Chesterton's is the UK one, but it's renovating Venetian palazzi, looking at different destinations. It's kind of all encompassing there. I also do so Telegraph Luxury, the magazine, so nice glossy, very high-end stuff, very reliant on amazing images. There are no boundaries destination-wise, but it really needs kind of good, sort of great interviewees. It has to be a high profile person, or it could be an insight into a sort of lifestyle trend that's, you know, that the ultra high net worth people are indulging in now, how tech billionaires are living, wellness trends, all that kind of thing. In terms of places I love writing about, I'm mad about Spain. I speak Spanish. I used to live there at various times. I go there a lot, so I like anything Spanish. Also Portugal and France, and obviously there's always huge amounts of stories to write. I mean, you know, Carol obviously mentioned the you know, proposed changes to British buyers in Spain when it comes to taxes. Tons of stuff is always going on with what visas you can get, when these various schemes ending, you know, all the carrots and sticks that are being dangled. What else? So that, you know, destinations, it could be almost anywhere. There are common themes that unite a lot of them. We've talked about the whole sort of golden visa schemes, the whole notion of people migrating for all sorts of reasons, whether it's climate change, whether it's all these lifestyle emigres wanting just, you know, they're taking their families and starting up whole new lives elsewhere. Safe havens more than ever. So, you know, people really seeking something much more secure for their families, for their money, for their futures. Young tech money does seem to come into almost everywhere I write about at the moment, and how their demands change, you know, markets. They want to, they're a very different breed of people. They're, you know, I hear about these ones that have got 100 million and they're not even 30 yet. And, you know, they are different to the kind of old wealth. I think maybe, you know, they appear to be less ostentatious in their taste, less materialistic possibly. They're into wellness, they're into their carbon footprint. They may not necessarily be returning to the same place over and over in the way that older generations of wealth do. So maybe some of these fractional ownership schemes where you can, you know, make use of multiple very luxurious properties, that's going to become a much more popular way of buying or investing. You know, they want cool city places as much as they want sort of, you know, Barbados beachfront stuff. And touched upon, you know, so, you know, luxury market, there are obviously a vast array of themes within it. Anne mentioned about luxury retirement. That's something I write about quite a bit. You know, that is a very kind of new thing. These places that look like private members clubs. You know, one the other day, Rupert Everett pitched up to give a talk. I mean, this is all kind of this whole world of retirement that, you know, is quite alien to most people. Luxury resorts and branded residences, that's a huge theme. Branded residences seem like they're gonna keep on sort of growing. Luxury design, I mean, I'm not into writing about posh wallpaper or anything, but it's more about, you know, how people live, you know, what high net worth people want, how they want their places to look, how their changing lifestyles and tastes are affecting their their buying decisions. And I just really like stories about people. For me, it's all that. It's all about the motivation of people. So I did a piece recently for for Carol about there was a London estate agent who sells multi-million-pound flats in Primrose Hill, but from his beachfront place in Panama. There's a couple who live on board the World and are just constantly traveling the world, very wealthy Canadian couple. So it's all about, what's interesting to me is just what people are doing and what's driving them to do it. And then as a freelancer, best ways to get to me, to pitch to me, I have email. That's just by far the best thing. Phone calls I tend to find kind of, I'm always writing or juggling and they kind of disrupt me a bit. So I really like emails and I'll always reply. And I think in terms of what you pitch, I mean, you know, by definition, everything in this luxury market looks quite good. It looks pretty amazing. So it's always finding that point of differentiation. You know, and often, as I say, it may not be the headline story that your client thinks you should pitch or that you want to pitch, but it's sometimes just those little observations. So, for example, the PR mentioned to me about a a development in northwest London where some 90-year-old tenants had moved into these brand new flats, and that just struck me as really interesting about renting at different ages of your life. So that was a piece I did for Carol. You know, that it's just it is just those little personal asides that can often spark a whole piece. And then in terms of what I want from PRs when you do pitch, I would say transparency is really important. So just always be really honest if this idea has gone out to lots of other people, and you know, just because it's awful if I pitch an idea and then I hear 7 other people have pitched the same thing that week. You know, it's just really good to know, right? This is, you know, this is what we've got. This is it for you. And we won't go to anyone else. And always, you know, always address it to me rather than just sort of generic thing. And then final thing, if I had to kind of look at the luxury market this year, I think, as I've said, I think the whole sort of younger, rich people, that does seem to be the theme in every global market I'm writing about. So I think that's quite interesting about how that is going to influence what properties look like and where people are moving and what they want. How, you know, post all these elections and with wars, where people are relocating to, climate migration, more sustainable luxury. These are all the themes that have been mentioned. You know, how's that going to affect people? Fewer glass boxes, and wellness is always huge, and it's finding those. I mean, it's always a nice topic to write about because it kind of, you know, it sort of illustrates the excess often of super rich lifestyles. But you know, what are the new kind of ways that people are really bringing that wellness into their lives and into their properties? So I think that's probably me for now.
Terrific, Zoe. Thank you so much. You know, thanks to all of you for the amount of kind of thought that went in and preparation that went into your pitches today. I don't think we've ever had such a kind of detailed forensic session with so many ideas. I'm just going to give a quick shout out to the people who pitched in questions, and I will share them with the panelists afterwards. Miranda Smith at Sanford PR asking about sustainability, Ryan Clayton at Unsworth Sugden asking about prime and super prime. And I did have some really great questions from Graham Downey at Leger Immobilier, and I will definitely be passing that to Hugo with his mention of France and equestrian estates. And also Ethan Henson, a PR manager at Unsworth Sugden, writing in about sustainability. So I'm really sorry that we can't cover those today, but I did promise the panelists faithfully that we would end at 12. It's been a mesmerizing, highly luxurious session today, and I've enjoyed it enormously. And thank you to all of you for joining us. But as I say, to our panelists for the thought of preparation and just incisive thoughts and oodles of story angles they came up with, I would like to thank Anne Cuthbertson at the London Magazine, Carol Lewis at the Times, Hugo Cox, freelance, and Zoe Darehall, freelance. You really are the best in the business, you four. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We've loved it. See you next time.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Goodbye.